to 7th grade math support. Here are the topics we'll be talking about throughout the course of the year. We are working on ratios and proportional relationships right now. And this has 6 objectives. We're working on the last of the objectives for ratios and proportional relationships. So let's see what it is. We will be using proportional relationships to solve multi-step ratios and percent problems. Examples: simple interest, tax, markups and markdowns, gratuities and commissions, fees, percent increase and decrease, and percent error. In our example for today, we won't go through all of these examples. These are just a few examples of when you would need to use multi-step ratio problems, including percent, but we will touch on a few. So let's look at the problem. Maria is saving up to buy a new bicycle. The bike's original price is $240. The store is offering a 15% markdown during a holiday sale. After the discount, the store charges a 7% sales tax on the reduced price. Maria has already saved $180. So we will be addressing 5 different questions. What is the sales price of the bicycle after the markdown? How much tax will Maria pay? What is the final cost of the bicycle, including tax? How much more money does Maria need to buy the bike? And if Maria earns $12 per hour babysitting, how many hours must she work to afford the remaining amount? So let's do this one step at a time so that we can address all 5 questions. Well, we know that the bike's original price is $240. Which is going to help us as we move into question number 1, which is what is the sales price of the bicycle after the markdown? Well, the markdown is 15%. So whenever we're finding percent of a number, we will use the decimal version of that number. So we will have 15 over 100 would equal 15 hundredths if we were to write it as a decimal. Now, additionally, we can look at the opposite of this to figure out what the markdown would be. We can do this one of 2 ways. We can multiply 240 times the 15% and then subtract that 15% from the 240, or we could multiply the 240 times the additional that would make up this entire percent, which would be 85 hundredths. And then that would get us directly to our markdown. So let's do that. So 240 times 85 hundredths. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. So 0, regroup the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Write our 0. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 4 is 32. So 2, regroup 3. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 3 is 19. We'll add all of this together. Now we'll go back to our factors to see how many decimal places does our answer need. 240 has 0 decimal spaces, but 85 hundredths has 2. So our answer needs to have 2. So after the 15% markdown, the price has gone down to 204. So that answers this question. It will be 204. Now, the next question is, how much tax will Maria pay? Well, after the discount, the store charges a 7% sales tax. So, same way we did with this, we will find the percent of the decimal of 7%, which would be 7 over 100, or 7 hundredths. All right, now, again, we can multiply 204 times 7 hundredths. That will show us how much tax Maria will pay. So 204 times 7 hundredths. 7 times 4 is 28. Right, group the 2. 7 times 0 is 0. Plus 2 is 2. 7 times 2 is 14. That's all going to be 0, so we don't need to actually do that one. But we'll look at the factors. There's 0 decimal places here and 2 decimal places here. So the amount of tax that will be paid will be $14.28. Now the final cost, including tax, well, we will need to do 204 plus $14.28. So 14.28. Have to make sure we line up our decimals properly. So 8 and 2, that's 8, 1 and 2. So the final cost, including tax, is $218.28. We are coming right along. We are now down to our last two questions. The fourth question is, how much more money does Maria need to buy the bike? Well, she has already saved $180. So if we subtract 218.28 minus 180, that's going to 8 minus 0 is 8. We can't do that, so we'll borrow and make that into 11. 11 minus 8 is 3. So she needs $38.28. So 38.28. And finally, if Maria earns $12 per hour babysitting, how many hours must she work to afford the remaining amount? Well, $12, we can do some repeat addition. So 12, 24, 36, 48. So because she's earning per hour, we wouldn't break up the hours. We would just work the amount of hours. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So she would need to work an additional 4 hours. That will have her with $10.28 left over, which is great to have some money left over. And let's see. And actually, she would have a little less than that. So, but she would have enough to be able to afford her bicycle. Now, that is breaking down the markdown, finding out how much tax would be on a price, what the final price would be including tax, and then comparing what is already saved versus what needs to be saved and what can be done to make up the difference. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any additional questions, let me know. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you so much for joining my tutoring session today. If you enjoy the way that I instruct and you think that I would be a useful addition to your student or to yourself, feel free to scan this QR code. It is going to take you directly to my profile page where you can get set up on weekly classes with me. Looking forward to seeing you in the classroom. Bye.